Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and I want to wish my American friends, my American viewers, happy Thanksgiving. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving Day, and it's a big holiday here for many of us, and for those of you who might be abroad and you are American, happy Thanksgiving to you too. It's my favorite holiday, and I used to be the one that hosted it every year for the family for decades. But in recent years, about 4 years ago, my daughter-in-law was like, after they bought their first home, they're like, we would like to do Thanksgiving. Can you pass the torch to us? And so as much as I love doing and hosting Thanksgiving, I was like, yeah, okay, I understand, so pass the torch. And I always contribute, I always make something, but I'll tell you what, in the years that have followed, it's kind of nice not having to do it. There's a lot of stress involved in hosting a Thanksgiving meal for 20 people or whatever. And so it's okay that I've passed the torch, but it is my favorite holiday. I love it. And another thing I want to acknowledge is that it's been weeks since I've dropped a video, and I want to acknowledge this because I'm sorry, but as you may understand, as I've mentioned it a few times, it gets really hard for me to know what to do to make a video of. I've done so many videos, and it's just, I run out of ideas. I can only, I haven't been buying new decks recently because, of course, it's holiday season, and all the extra money goes to grandbaby presents and money for the kids, So I haven't had the luxury of buying new decks or having new decks to show. And there's only so many readings that I'm willing to do about my own life, unless I lose something and then I really want to find it, and then I'll do it because it might be interesting to you guys. But, I don't really want to put my personal stuff out there that much. I do movie videos. I do lost and, find things, but I do crime and true crime, but, I don't like to do a lot of current true crime, because if a family member sees something that I've done, because on YouTube, stuff pops up, I would never want to inadvertently be insensitive or hurt. So I try to keep my videos on current crime, to a minimum. I do history mysteries, but there weren't any that I was really looking to do. So when I saw that Masha dropped her judgment card for her Top Tarot Trumps series, I was thrilled, because I was like, yay, thank you, Masha. So Musings by Masha has a Top Tarot Trump series, kind of like a video challenge, to just showcase a handful of tarot trump cards that we like for whatever reason. So today we're on Judgment. So the decks that I have chosen range, a span of about 600 years. And you know how when any given tarot card can have multiple readings, right? Can have multiple meanings, and sometimes a tarot card of a particular deck will stress one meaning over another. So it's a case in point where, if you're doing a tarot reading, you really do, although you do need to know words or the meanings of the cards, you also have to read the deck, right? And because of the representation on one judgment card may not be the same as a representation on another deck's judgment card. And that is the case for every Triumph card. All right. Starting from the earliest, I'm doing this in chronological order. I'm starting with my Mitelli. I love Mitelli. It's one of my favorite decks. I probably haven't showcased the cards from the Mitelli in too many of these videos, only because I don't want to show the same deck over and over and over and over again. But in this case, I really do think that I love the judgment card of the Mitelli. As I mentioned, I think this is Mitelli deck by Marco Benedetti. It originally, the way it came down to us, is a Tarocchino. Whenever you see ino at the end of a word, it means diminutive or smaller in size. So the Mitelli deck was a Tarocchino deck, meaning that it had lesser tarot cards. The cards 2 through 5 were not in play in this deck. So the way it came down to us in history is that it's, like, I don't know, like 62 cards or something, because all cards from 2 to 5 were removed. And for years I was saying, oh, I wish somebody would create a Mitelli deck and just put in cards 2 through 5 so it could be used as a tarot deck. And Mark Benedetti did that. And so anyway, I thought I'd put that out there. Here is the back of Marco's Mitelli. Now, I love this Judgment card because we just have the angel blowing a horn. We don't have any reference to death, although if you know the meaning of the card, you know that it conjures up the image of your last judgment and being called upon to account for your life, right? Account for the deeds you've done in your life. But without that reference, it could also just be seen as some really good information, being a great announcement or some kind of announcement coming from nowhere. If it's somebody who's waiting for news, or if they're waiting to, they want to get engaged, but they don't, like, is this the guy or whatever? This, in that context, could represent an announcement coming. It could be a birth announcement. It could be a wedding announcement. It could be any kind of good news. The second deck that I've chosen to show is, I have 2 decks for the one card. I have the Lo Scarabeo Vacchetta. I'm not sure if it's Vacchetta or Vacchetta, I apologize. And then I also have Il Meneghello's version. Now, or publication. Now, this is the card as it has come down to us. So it's a sepia tone, or it's, like if just by virtue of running the plate without color. Right? So this is how it exists. However, I'm using the Il Meneghello card deck to show. It's easier to see. So I must have like maybe 4, 5, or 6 representations of the Vacchetta deck. And they, of course, all have different coloration, because when the original doesn't have color, then it opens the door for publications to just do their own thing. I do tend to like the Il Meneghello coloration the best. Now, I like this deck, this image, because it's a classic representation of folks reawakening, okay, coming out of their graves and protecting their eyes or their ears or whatever, and in recognition of the angel Gabriel blowing his horn. So it could mean some type of announcement or good news, okay? Could be that. But there's also a sense of being held accountable for your actions. And so it depends on the context of the question. As I mentioned, if it's, about baby news or a wedding or whatever, this card might play a little bit better with that. And this could be more of being held accountable for things that you've done, especially if something like the Hanged Man pops up. Right? Now, another thing that occurred to me is I thought to myself, what if I was a brand new person to tarot and I didn't really know tarot and I just bought a deck, or somebody gave me a deck, and I, had to make sense of these cards? I could see a person, before they did their research, looking at this and thinking in this particular rendition that this is a boat, because we seem to have a landscape with mountains. Now, the terrain here is green and brown, so it could be earth, but it also could be muddy water. And then if you look at this, okay, now you have to get really close to see that these kind of represent or seem similar to something that you would see on a sarcophagus or something, right? But if you're just looking at it casually, I could see a person thinking that this is a boat full of people and they're just so happy that they're getting help or good news, right? And so this would be a case in point of a person, of reading the deck. Now, say a person, like I mentioned, is brand new to tarot and misunderstood what they were looking at. And until they knew better, if they did a reading and they interpreted this to mean that there was, somebody was going to help you out, or you were going to get some salvation or something, in a way, it still has part of that meaning, right, intact. But I would think, the way the message is the way that a person receives a message, if the person goes into this with sincerity, and they, want to give a good, meaning across. If the message they receive is that good news will be, or they'll be saved from something. Suppose they're struggling. The person that comes to the reader is struggling, and they see a card like this, and it kind of makes them think like they're going to be saved from a terrible boat catastrophe. You know what I'm saying? So it's legit, I think, to receive that message and to interpret it in that way. Once you know better, you do better. But if a person were to see this card and misunderstand it, but that was the message they got, it's legit. It's legit. The next card I'm showing is from the 74, I think, or 75 Fergus Hall Tarot of the Witches, which was a movie prop for 007 Live and Let Die. And I do happen to have the movie deck also, but I just use this one for video. Now this one, we have reference to death, right? But we don't see people rising. And then we see this angel blowing the horn as though there's, maybe enough noise to raise the dead, right? It could be seen like that somebody's blowing the horn, making enough noise, making such a racket, they're going to raise the dead. It could be, it could be in the context of a person's question that this, the way you would see that could be used, right? But at the same time, it can conjure up people, being called up from the dead, even though it doesn't explicitly show that. The next card that I'm showing is from Joe Lee's LeGrande Circus and Sideshow Tarot, and I really like this deck. In fact, I believe that my very first tarot videos on this channel, I think I showcased this deck, and I think I did like maybe 4 or 5 videos, because I would break it down into like 15-minute segments or something. I didn't think in those days that anybody would watch me for an hour. So I think I did I broke down this tarot deck, but I think this was the very first deck I ever showcased in my channel. But at any rate, this guy, look at this carefully. We have a throng of people who are entranced by whatever this guy's selling. And in some ways, this card to me is more sinister looking than this one, because it's almost like everyone is enchanted by somebody who's in the circus, like we're following like a circus act who's in town today and out of town tomorrow, and all the stuff they sell you, So it could be, if you wanted to read it traditionally, you could see it as being held accountable, being called on the carpet for something. But you could also, I think, interpret this card by interpreting the deck, right? And seeing people following somebody who's part of the circus, It's an interesting read. And then the last card that I've chosen, I have chosen cards from this deck a number of times for this series. And this one is the Erenberg Tarot by Steve Erenberg. And here we have a reference to a hand coming out of a casket. And then we have the wing and the horn. So again, just like with the Vacchetta, if I was a brand new tarot person and I didn't read and I didn't make myself, if I didn't if I was not quite at the stage where I was interested enough to really understand what these cards were about, if I saw this as a boat, I might also see this as some kind of death thing, because it's looks death, right? So it's got, like if we had, say, for example, like the, another card, like the death card in with this, it could put a chill up your spine a little bit, because it might suggest the end of an enterprise. It could also suggest, if you have somebody and if they're asking a question about an aged parent or whatever, or if they're themselves are sick, you get people of all backgrounds when you do readings, and people share a lot of information with you, and there are times when people have said, my parent is dying, what do I need to do, and how can I help them? Well, if you see a card like this in that context, you could assist in helping them get their things in order, so that when they die, everything's kind of like there's less work to do for the administrator or the executor of the estate, you see. But it could also just mean the end of an enterprise, or something just ending, that kind of thing. So I hope you enjoyed my choices for the Judgment card, and again, as I think every one of these cards in this series has shown, there are multiple ways. There are multiple representations of these images, and that it's good to have a repertoire of understanding all the angles, all the angles that a Judgment card could have, but also to notice what is actually being portrayed in the card itself, because you do want to read the deck. I kind of like to stress that. I do want to mention that beginning tonight until for about 9 days, we're having company here, and we're going to be entertaining for a while, and I'm not going to be able to do readings. So if you're wanting to get a reading from me, I won't be able to do it. So please just keep me in the back burner of your mind, and sometime in mid-December I'll be back to be doing. I'll be here, but I'll be back in the sense that I'll be available to do readings. And it's same for my lessons. I'm just going to be taking a little bit of a hiatus. So if you contact me, I'm not going to be real careful with following my emails and stuff like that. So I just wanted to point that out there. Also, if you like my content, please give me a thumbs up. Please give me subscribed. Put on the notification bell so that when I do drop a video, you get it, and all the things that help a channel out, because it makes a difference to us, and it would give me some incentive to do them more often. if I got people behind me, and every now and then, I wouldn't be upset if you sent me an idea for a video. It doesn't mean I'll do it necessarily, but I do appreciate getting ideas. And again, happy Thanksgiving to all who celebrate. Until next time, friends, peace, stay well, be kind, and do no harm.